Today we're going to discuss some of the darkest true stories behind horror movies that are usually overlooked. It's not all about the Warrens and Amityville, okay? Today we're going to look at the more terrifying, gritty, and raw stories behind some of your favorite horror movies that make the fictional counterpart look kind of weak. Somehow in these movies, we don't have to worry too much about the based on because the true story is more horrific. Get ready for some nightmare fuel because you'll never see these films the same way again. And if you have trouble finding films, these dark kind of films on the internet, well, today's sponsor will help you out. Surfshark is a VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network. Not only do they encrypt all of your data and protect you while you're surfing online, they also can unlock geo-block content, which is how I access a lot of movies that are blocked in my region. Surfshark are not only incredibly affordable, but it's so easy to use. You just type in what country, what city you want to be from, and it's only a couple of clicks until you're there. I use Surfshark on the daily. I love this VPN and it has helped me so much in tracking down dark cinema. And bonus, your membership will give you unlimited device access. So you can also download it on your phone, on your laptop, on your smart TV, wherever you surf the web, all under your one membership. If you'd like to try out Surfshark today, use my code SPOOKY and you get 83% off and 3 months extra for free. That's the code SPOOKY, and there's a link down in the description for easy access. Thank you so much to Surfshark for supporting creators like me, and let's get into it. And because I know all of you are sicko psychos just like me, I'd love to know what your personal favorite horror movie that's based on a true story is. So leave them down below, and if I haven't seen it, I will definitely check it out. Let's start at a very unexpected place. The Devil's Rejects. The Devil's Rejects, directed by Rob Zombie, is a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses. But because of its zany, over-the-top, crude atmosphere, its disturbing roots are lost. The film is loosely based on the real-life crimes of the Bloody Benders. The Bloody Benders were a family of serial killers that operated a small general store and inn in Kansas. This was during the late 19th century. The family consisted of a man, his wife, son, and daughter. It's believed together they killed 11 people, mostly people who stayed in their inn. The Benders would seat their victims at a table, and then one of the family members would come up behind them with a hammer and strike them on the head. They would then rob and mutilate the body before burying it. The Benders' crimes were discovered in 1873 after a search party found the remains of several of their victims, but the family fled and were never caught. The movie is known for its graphic violence and disturbing themes, but interestingly enough, they don't exaggerate as much as one thinks. The Entity. This is a very strange film, and it's kind of hard how to take the true story of this, but either way, it's absolutely horrific. This one really divides audiences as to its authenticity because it deals with a spiritual entity. The film is based on the real-life experiences of Doris Bither, who claims that she was assaulted by an invisible entity in her home. The movie is known for its disturbing and graphic portrayal of assault, which has been criticized for being exploitative. And as mentioned, viewers and critics have questioned her claims and whether the movie accurately portrays her experiences. Despite these controversies, The Entity is based on a real story and a real person, and the film shows this in terrifying detail. The Town That Dreaded Sundown is a 70s slasher that documents the terrifying hold that a serial killer had over a small town, murdering 7 people and putting the town into panic. The film's title refers to the fear that the residents of Texarkana had during the actual crimes in 1946, which were dubbed the Texarkana Moonlight Murders. The killer, who was never identified or caught, attacked couples parked in secluded areas, killing 5 people and injuring 3 others over a period of several weeks. The case received widespread attention and led to a massive manhunt, but the killer was never found. Although the film uses documentary-like footage, it's a fictional portrayal of the event, which makes me wonder, why didn't they just do this as a documentary? Because the real case needs no exaggerations. This next one kept me up at night. It still does sometimes. It's The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, this is based on the true story of Anneliese Michel, a German woman who underwent Catholic exorcism rites in the 70s. Anneliese was believed to be possessed by multiple demons and was the subject to a prolonged exorcism that lasted for over 10 months. That's 10 whole months. She eventually died of malnutrition and dehydration, and her parents and exorcist were charged with negligent homicide. The movie explores the legal and moral implications of the case, as well as the psychological and spiritual aspects of the possession and exorcism. And if that wasn't enough, there's also another movie that is based on this same case called Requiem. This is from 2006, and this is a German drama horror movie. The film explores different sides to this story, with the exorcism of Emily Rose focusing more on the court case. Requiem follows the story from a first-person account. There's a lot of evidence to Annaliese's experiences online, whether you believe in exorcism or not. She was obviously very psychologically damaged by these events. There's photos and audio tapes. I've heard one of the audio tapes being played in a museum before, and honestly, it's one of the scariest things I've ever heard. It's so saddening what happened to this woman. Okay, I cannot do this video without mentioning this. I know you're probably all writing it in the comments. I hate talking about these films. Not that they're not well done. It's just one of the most horrendous crimes ever recorded. We're talking about an American crime and The Girl Next Door. These are based on the torture and murder of Sylvia Likens. The films both tell the story in their own way, with an American crime taking more of a psychological drama approach, while Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door can be seen as a more dark and brutal horror. Both are almost unbearable reenactments of this story that is so dark, it's almost impossible to forget it once you've heard it or seen the films. Sylvia Likens was a 16-year-old girl from Indiana, and in 1965, she was left in the care of a woman who was hired by her parents to look after her and her sister while they traveled with a carnival. This woman, Gertrude, along with her children and a group of neighborhood kids, subjected Sylvia to months of physical and emotional abuse, including branding, burning, and mutilation, ultimately leading to her death. So if you didn't know, now you know why these films are so challenging to watch. There's no exaggeration needed this time. I feel like the darkest of all human minds wouldn't even come up with this horrendous of a crime. A movie many people in the horror community are fascinated by is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This psychological horror movie was released in 1986, and the film is based on the real-life serial killer Henry Lee Lucas. The movie serves as a character study, exploring the mind of a killer and the disturbing psychological factors that drive someone to commit such heinous crimes. As the story unfolds, we learn more about Henry's troubled past and how he turned to violence. Henry Lee Lucas, who the film is based on, was an American serial killer, and he confessed to killing hundreds of people over the span of 20 years. But his actual victim count remains unknown. He had a troubled upbringing, and he claimed to be physically and sexually abused by his mother. Lucas's confessions were often contradictory and inconsistent, and many of the cases were eventually dismissed due to lack of evidence. However, he was eventually convicted of 11 murders and sentenced to death. His sentence was later changed to life in prison, and he died behind bars. Although the film is intense and disturbing, it is able to package what we know about Henry into a box where the truth is a little bit more complicated and a complex mystery. Although this film did create nightmares for filmgoers, there's a lot we don't know about Lucas and what crimes he actually committed. We have no idea the truth and how many people he really harmed. Wolf Creek follows a group of 3 backpackers traveling around the Aussie outback when their car breaks down in a rural town. They are offered help by a seemingly friendly local man named Mick Taylor, who takes them to his campsite. However, his intentions are soon revealed, and they must fight to survive in a dangerous landscape. Although this movie is not a direct retelling of backpack murders, it takes a lot of inspiration from some events that happened in the 80s and 90s within Australia. Ivan Milat killed 7 backpackers who traveled through the Belangolo State Forest south of Sydney. Each backpacker was picked up by Ivan, who took them to the forest and brutally murdered them. The film obviously plays on this fear, which works really well with the isolated backdrop, but in one point of time, this story wasn't far off from reality, from a truth that remains just as brutal. It is a dark and grisly story that is retold in Australia that honestly didn't happen that long ago. Sorry if you were expecting an upbeat video, that was brutal. Let me know what your favorite horror movies and thrillers are that are based on true stories. I have a bunch more. I'm thinking if you guys like this, I'll do one based on thrillers. I already know some of you have probably written Snowtown. Don't worry, I have that down. And if you're morbidly curious, like me, about the true stories behind a lot of our favorite films, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you for another one very soon. Thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring these videos. Without you, I don't think I'd be able to do them. I'll talk to you guys all very soon. Stay safe, very safe, and stay spooky. Bye, friends.